Hello, hello. All right, 1 second, making sure we are live. Day 9 of the 12 Days of Realism. Let's switch ourselves back to that screen. Make sure that you guys can see, and I can see what you're seeing. So, we got right there. Let's get in to the next stage. I'm going to check right now to see how we're doing on social media, and we're broadcasting. We have about 20 minutes, and then I have to run into my boot camp class. But in 20 minutes, my hope is that I'm going to be able to give you the next piece of the puzzle. So yesterday, what we were focused on was creating the texture, and we used a really simple method with texture.xyz. And there's a lot more that needs to be done there, right? You got to texture the neck, you got to texture the back, and there's a bunch of little pieces missing. But here's the thing, that's if you're finishing it. And my goal for you is for you to get a win all the way through. It's just 12 days, right? And if you're doing this professionally, it's not 12 days. It's a little bit more than 12 days, or it's 12 full days. It's not 12 days or 12 half-hour sessions like I've been doing with you guys. And my goal is to give you enough pieces of the puzzle for you to get this win, get inspired, and realize, I can do this. Yes, I can go all the way, and it can look good using the same tools, the same processes that other people use, right? And if you're looking at the texturing.xyz stuff and you're going like, oh, that's cheating, you know, when would you ever do that? I'd be like, well, just about every feature film. Oh, and just about, you know, every AAA game. And every now and then you hear of an artist and they'll say like, yeah, I textured that by hand, and that's fantastic. It's the exception, not the standard, right? It's like, oh, I get to. And what we want to do is, the way we want to think about this is the texturing from texture.xyz is this great teacher, fantastic teacher. Do it. Then go try texturing by hand. So you can say, hey, I did it by hand. Hey, Gareth. All right, I got to stop meandering in my conversation here. And we got to get to make sure that we're going on YouTube, and YouTube is working okay. My channel. And then I literally have 20 minutes to show you guys what I need to show you. Okay, and there we go. We're live. And we're live. Day 9. You want to see more about these? Head over here to GameArtInstitute.com. Over there, you go to the blog section, and you'll see more of all of these. You see all the other days as well as the podcasts. We just had a cool podcast episode with Irene Matar. She came in and had a conversation with the students and me. So day 8 was what we looked at last time. That was a review. Excuse me, about swallowed my tongue. Day 7 was pores and wrinkles. That was the texturing.xyz. Today, how do we get it into this beast, right? We're not going to get all the way to here. I'm going to load in one of the working scenes. We're not going to get here, but we're going to get ourselves as close as we can. So in order to do this, we're going to need a couple of scenes, so a couple of files. We're in here at ZBrush, and we're not going to do the eyes. Again, today, 20 minutes. Can I give you the 20 minutes into Marmoset drill? You're going to export. Let's go in here. We're going to export the high resolution. Okay, and that's at the high resolutions right there. Then you're going to go all the way down to the low resolution, and you're going to export the low resolution. Okay, you're going to export those as OBJs. Now, in order for this to work properly, we actually need to bring this into Maya, or Max or Moto, or something that'll smooth the normals. And we need to import. Make sure you're there. We'll import it that way. And let's go JCVD. We're going to select the low res, select the whole thing. We're going to go in the modeling tool set, mesh display, soften edges. Okay, we need this whole thing to be very smooth. Just select it and press F. There you go. Looks good to me, yeah? Now, we'll export it. Make sure you select it. We're going to export. And I'm going to say Mentorship smoothed. I'm going to export it as an FBX, and this is just makes my life easier. I export OBJ from ZBrush, FBX from Maya, and that way I know exactly who's who and what's been done. Otherwise, I get a bunch of Maya or OBJ files, and it's like, which one was that? All right, now this is a totally fresh scene. One of the first things I'm going to do is come into the sky presets. I'm going to change this over to a different preset, like the garage. Okay, I don't really want to see any of that that other stuff. Okay, and in the mode for the backdrop, we're just going to go color, because I don't want that. I don't want that scene in the back. I just want to use it for color and for lighting and things like that. So again, it's sky. I go to the presets, and then I go into mode, and I just set it to color. You know, because you set it to sky, and then it's going to have all of that. We don't want that. We want just color. There we go. Now we're going to click this little import. We're going to find our little mentorship file. Okay, it comes in. It's all smoothed. Yay. Then we're going to do the same thing, the little button, and we're going to bring in our high. Now, I got to warn you, there's probably going to be a crash here. There might be. It crashes sometimes not, and I haven't fixed it on this particular computer where we have to adjust the graphic settings. I'm going to select another bake. And now the way that Marmoset works is that it relies on these. If you look over here in the scene, hello. Don't tell me my pen stopped. Yes, I love Microsoft Surface. It relies on these little objects and these nodes. These nodes then perform behaviors and actions. So when you want to do something like a turntable or bake something or, you know, a camera, it's all this kind of node type situation. You just got to select the node. So if I want to bake, I have to select a baker. Now, they've got auto baking, and there's a bunch of cool things that you can do. We don't need to sweat all that. I'm going to just do the manual way. I'm going to take my mentorship down into the low. I'm going to take my high res into the high, and then I'll just turn the visibility of the high off. I'm going to come into my baker, and the resolution I'll set to 4096. And why do I set it to 4096? When you're working on your stuff here, now unless you're really worried about speed and something like that, one of the key things that you kind of keep in mind, let me get the microphone a little bit closer over here. The one thing that you got to keep in mind is you want it to look good, right? So one of the things some of my students will do sometimes is first time that we do this, they'll set the settings to 2048. And they'll be like, I want this to look good, but I want them to know that I can do it in game. And I'm like, do you show up to your first date in the clothes you normally wear? Or do you put on your nice hoodie? You gotta dress up. So I want you guys to see this. I want other people to see this. So I'm gonna go in and set these settings up to a little bit higher. Now I also, I'm gonna make sure that use hidden meshes is here. And since this has already exhibited signs of instability, I'm gonna save it. So I don't have to do that again. Let's do mentor. How do you spell that? Mentorship. There you go. Save it out. And we're not going to do just normals. So take a look down here. And down in this area, we're going to go curvature, ambient occlusion. Those are both really important. There you go. Save it. That's just me being crazy. All right, now we bake it. It always takes me a while to get my head around this, but you see this little flashing green thing in the center on the left? That's your bake. Now if it crashes, we'll set it back to 2048, and it just won't look so good for you guys. But there you go. All right, I'm leaving it as default. It's bake.psd. So, this is going to load in a particular folder, so we're going to leave it all default. I'm not going to sweat this too much, and it's basically going right into the folder where the Marmoset file is being stored. we want, there's our crash. Yeah. Preference moderates. Okay. So we'll work through that today, and I've actually already baked these, so I don't have to sweat that too much. Mentorship. And I'm on a Surface, Microsoft Surface, which is got the graphics card baked in, not something I can shift. Try it one more time. Cool piece of equipment, but a little painful in that area. Aldo, how are you? Midgen. Always fun to roll the dice. Yes, well, I already know it breaks. So it goes. That's how it goes. Hey, Tariq, how are you? All right, looks like 2048 is actually going to be just fine here. Famous last words, though, right? Okay. Now, as we go, oh, that was just like blanked out. I was like, what happened to my screen? So as we go through this, you got to remember when you deal with games, even when you deal with film, the most, essentially what we're dealing with is we're getting a model and maps. A model and maps. So the products, that's like that kitty. The products that your deliverables are always a model, a low res, and probably some high res so that this bake can function, and then ultimately maps. All right, so we're pretty set. Late but sleepy. Early over here, Jorge. Okay, we've got our maps. We can come in here and say, where are these little beasts? They're right there. AO, looks like it was saved. Oh, wow, my time is, God knows what this time is. But we have the AO, we have the curve, and we have the normal. Cancel out. I'm going to select this kind of default material here. Just make sure that this is on it. So I'm going to select it, apply. All right, there we go. And let's just save. And last time that we were here doing this, we had created the skin. So I've kind of gone a little further. And here is the finished skin that I used after having done the texturing.xyz. I added a few things, cleaned up a few things. There's a lot of work done here, you know, and I understand that. But I'm also not trying to give you any illusion that this is just like, hey, we're done. Like, you know, if you look at the files, there's a lot of stuff. You know, I got a lot of different elements going on here and a lot of different parts, and that's okay. You know, this is my file. This has been worked. I'm kind of excited to help you learn all that stuff, but it's going to take some time. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in. I'm going to establish my normal map. So let's load the normal map. There you go. That looks good. I like this. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change my micro surface to gloss. Okay. Then I'm going to come in and see if I can't put my curve, the curvature, in there in the micro surface. Okay, cool. Now that's pretty cool. It does a lot of neat things. I don't know what the heck that is. But there we go. We get some basic work going on there. So anywhere that there's a crevice, this is going to be pushed in. This is what the curve looks like. Let's go all the way out to the source. Voila. Okay. That's my curve. Pretty awesome, yeah? I love this. This is so valuable. This is going to be actually one of your most important maps. Okay, and let me keep track of time here. And we got 9 minutes. Luca, how are you? All right. Next thing I'm going to do might be to bring the skin in. So let's just bring the skin so you can see this in its most general way. Okay, but the skin makes everything hard to see. So I'm going to turn that off for right now. And in my diffusion, I need to switch this over to subsurface scattering. Let's open it up. There we go. And what we've got to figure out now is what's our scatter depth. Okay, now if you come in here and this has no effect as you kind of go back and forth, it's because you missed a step. That's all right, you missed a step because I didn't actually explain it. And Marmoset, come on guys, this is an easy thing to miss because it's all set to meters. So what we've got to do right off the bat is turn show scale reference on and find the little dude. See how he's down here? That little dude is too small. We need his head to be roughly the size of our head. So we come into the imported and we change this to centimeters, and we're like, that's kind of the opposite direction. His head's too big. So then you try some of the English measurements. There you go. That's looking good. Okay, whatever works. Don't get caught up. You can change this to millimeters, but I haven't seen a huge impact in that. In anything that I'm working on. Now, this is our baby. There we go. Let's turn this down. We've got our measurements in there. There you go. Okay, scatter map. And object in space. Okay. What happened? Inches. Come on. Oh man. Let's load curvature in here. Or actually, sorry, I don't like to load curvature. I like to load skin. There we go. What did we do? Our metalness, our reflection. This isn't really important right now. Scatter map's not there. Oh gosh, guys. Translucency map, it's like totally stopped working. None. Or maybe it's updating. Hello. Scatter. Yeah, the scatter map can be right there. We can use our skin. We can use our curve. But we're still not getting any measurements. Hold on 2 seconds. Okay, let's come into our skin. Let's turn our albedo off. Don't need our scatter map. And this should be functioning. But for some reason it's not there. And it's probably something real simple as we go through. Let's turn our maps off so this is a little bit more default. And I'm going to just set this real quick to a couple of different settings. There, we're going to keep that. Oh, it's probably the metalness. Okay, we'll put that back to our specular. And hold on. I'm going to set this back to the way it was, or should be anyways for you. Okay, and this is usually by default set to metalness. So we'll adjust that. And there you go. Hey Waleed, how are you doing? Okay, and we're running a bit late. And let's set our adjustment all the way down. Okay. And also I'm going to turn this off. So let's set this back to normal. And our color, there you go. All right, let's save this real quick. It's my delete scene. This is going to be the one I come back to if it's not working. But I want to try to make this one work. Let's go into this guy. Make sure that's applied. Looks like I didn't save any of that, so normal. Yes. I'm going to come into my reflectivity, go into specular, not metalness. I'm going to go into my roughness and go to gloss. I'm going to go in that gloss and I'm going to set my curve. That's just a nice way to do this. You know, you can ramp that up as you want. I'm going to kind of skip this albedo, or you can load it and then just hide it. So let's try one more time on this. And then if you guys see what I'm doing wrong, by all means, let me know if anybody does. Okay. Now, save this scene out. Okay. Now, we adjust this, and we're getting results. Good. That's what we need. Now let's go into our scene, and it looks like we actually need it to be meters. No, that's better. There we go. All right, guys, I can't explain that glitch, but we've gone back through the reference, through the process. We have the scene set to inches. Let's turn the guy off. Maybe just the threat of opening up another file. We have the normal map on. We've got our curve and the gloss. We've got the skin that we textured on day 7, a modification of that. We now have set our diffusion to subsurface scatter. Okay. Before it was Lambertian, just a Lambert. Which sounds nice when you say Lambertian, or however that's pronounced. Now we go into diffusion and subsurface scatter. And the big thing that we're trying to do is we're trying to get the scatter depth to lightly blur things. Lightly. Oh, is that, it was the metalness? Yeah, thanks, Jorge. It was when we switched ourselves back, so there you go. See how reflectivity was set to metalness? Specular does it. All right, hold on one second. I've got to tell Susan I'm going to be late, because I want to make sure that I get something for you guys. Going to be late to class. 10 min. All right. Get your specular set up first. Now here's the deal. Zoom in, and we're going to want to adjust this right to the point in which these things start to dissipate. Now, we are getting, and a lot of this kind of work does come from, you know, this gloss, and this gloss is, and the map that we're using in there, that's going to make a big part of this conversation. So if we come and set this down somewhere around, for me, it's between 0.4 and 1. And it's small movements. So very small. You just want this to dissipate a little bit. And of course, depending on how old your character is, that's all part of the conversation. So you can see this is no good. This is no good. Somewhere right around 1 is going to really make a difference. Probably about 0.8. I think that's what I ended up with. All right. Now, I'm going to go in and turn the albedo on. Okay, and it's all kinds of crazy on the specular. But scatter depth isn't going to do that. Not yet. So we're going to set that back at about 0.8. And in the scatter depth, I'm going to come in and throw the skin. And there's lots of things that people do, lots of ways that they do this. But I like this because it adds a little bit of green, a little green into the area here. The stubble, which we're going to add as well in another day. Now, with that done and said, the next thing that we've got to do is get in here and start to figure out some of this, the specular. So, you know, before we left it on metalness, it needs to be specular for this to function really well. It's a good idea to go and put your curve into this. You know, when you put your curve into it or anything with specular, you got to readjust your reflectivity. Okay, and then the other thing that you got to understand about this is you got to have your light. You know, so you can press Shift and you can move this light around so that you get a little bit better. And I kind of like it right here. Not there yet, right? This is still looking a little crap. So we're going to dial this down, and then we're going to come in and we're going to go to secondary reflection, and we're going to add a GGX. And leave it at its default 0.5. I like to take this Fresnel down because it really just starts to add a lot of halo around the edge. And take your secondary intensity all the way down. That's what we want to dial up. And it doesn't take much, like 0.25, and then I'll take my gloss, and I'll take that down to about 0.25. Then I'll take my intensity of my reflectivity, and I'll take that down as well, like about right there. But the real trick with this, or at least one of the real tricks, we haven't done it yet. The real trick is when you come in and you add an occlusion. So you see the very, very, very bottom. I'm going to go in and add an occlusion. And within that occlusion, you know, I think we have an AO map. We can try that. Okay, drop that occlusion way down. It's not that necessary. Just tiny, tiny, tiny bit, if at all. What we really want is this cavity map. We can come in with our curve on the cavity map, and by default, its effect on the diffuse cavity is quite intense. So take the diffuse cavity down, and what we really want is what it does to the specular and how it tamps down the specular. All right, now this map is low res, because it's 2048, but you can kind of get a sense out of what it does right there. So I'm going to leave that all the way at a 100. Yeah, there you go. I kind of like that. And I'll show you this on the final one. But this is the basic kind of setup for it. All right. Now, with these here and there, now the next thing for us to kind of adjust to start to get a feel for this is the specularity and the subsurface. Okay, those are the key components. And we're going to need to go in and take the maps and adjust, for example, the lips. See how they're very wet. That's not necessarily what we want. And some of that comes from the subsurface mat. But these are our things to adjust. 0.2. And subtlety is key. Okay, let's come in and say scatter depth. And we can increase the scatter depth a little bit with that specular. But then here's the other thing that's kind of important. I'm still not happy with this. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that I'm using an HDRI. So if you're doing this all by yourself, sometimes it's easy to forget. You know, there's a lot of components involved in this. A lot. And if you just change the light, you know, now suddenly you get a very different effect going on. And look at all my specularity is just kind of gone. So I got to put the specularity back in, but now it's actually too tight. So I got to come into my specular cavity, and I'm going to have to adjust these guys and see if I can get something. Let's take that all the way down. Now I'm getting this kind of fog. No, so let me show you the strategy that I like. Let's just return that gloss back there. Okay. The solution that I like is pick one of these, and we could do museum. All right, that's a nice one. But then you come in and within the side over here, click to put a light. And what this does is this gives you another layer of control over how the light behaves. All right. So between all of these different elements, when we're setting this up and we're getting ready for realism, the thing we got to keep in mind, and I think this is kind of an important thing to always be mentioning, is that it's not real. Okay, it's not like, and even in V-Ray and some of these aren't necessarily all physically accurate. And even if they say physically accurate, they're not necessarily 100% physically accurate. There's cheats, there's hacks, there's all kinds of different things that happen. And our job, what we're really focused on, is using the tool set to get a result. So what's the tool set that we can use to get the result that we want? That's the goal. Excuse me, all the time, that's what you want to be thinking about. Not this abstract, like, I should have this, I should have that. Just learn the tool set So you learn how these things help you get in and do different things. We haven't even turned GI on this. I keep saying GAI when I explain this. But we're going to be using light. We're going to be using settings. We're going to mix those things in. Then we're going to come up into the camera, and we're going to add that. We're going to add some chromatic aberration and some effects and, you know, all these different things. Again, all of them designed to get us a result, not to be reality, but to get us a result. You see something that looks photoreal in a museum, like a Chuck Close, some of those things, you get close and it's not. Okay, some of the things I like to do is come in contact refinement, but that's a little more when you got the eyes and you got other parts and things like that. Okay, another thing I like to do is immediately come into the shape, and I like to increase the width in all my lights. It just changes the effect and softens things. So I'll go in there and set it for all of these, and then I'll come back through and I'll start to adjust brightness. And see what I can get. All right, so we're getting a little bit in there. All right, so we've got light, but we don't have realism by any real stretch in here. You know, we got a lot more work to do, so we're going to head over into here, and we'll take a look at our settings, like the intensity. Start to dial some of this down. It's my secondary gloss. There we go. And then, even if you're not happy, there's one more thing I like to do. Just come in and create lights. Simple 3-point light setup. Good Lord, this always drives me nuts. I wish they had Maya's look at feature. Somebody will probably tell me there's something they got there that's cool. Increase your distance. Increase your spot angle if you need to. And increase your width to soften things. And try not to make it straight on, but actually use real settings. So let's go and move this over. There you go. So a little bit above and to the side, right? Now that's starting to look interesting. Now we'll go in and we'll create another light. And I'll zoom out and I'll look at this from the side. And there you go. And that should be kind of a fill light. We can move this down. Okay. And increase the distance on that one as well. Cool. Add some width on that one as well. Yeah, this one needs to be like very wide because it's this kind of diffuse thing that we're dealing with. And then just for real good solid, let's get something from the back. Where'd they put it? Looks like they like the above. Let's see what they do if I put. Okay. Look at this thing from behind. There you go. Drop that thing down. Actually like to have these rim lights up. Okay. Do we want that one to cast a shadow? Kind of. Now, one thing I'm hoping you're catching out of this is actually one of the big parts of this, is you saw me do all these settings and you saw me have this kind of mediocre results. The big thing you got to understand about lighting is it's not like the magic, I'll say it this way, the magic is not in the software per se. The magic is inside you kind of knowing how to work that software. So like if I was going to paint this, I got to put all this magic inside myself. When I am sitting here looking at Marmoset, you just got to find the light. You got to find the settings that work. And the big thing to do when you're confused about all of this stuff, I'm going too long here, is clever monkey. Try a bunch of different things, but always be thinking in terms of systems. Always systems. So we've got a better result now, I think. You know, we definitely need eyeballs, and that's all the stuff that we're going to kind of get into and cover. But we're getting better results now, and a big part is we took more control over the light. We didn't depend on just HDRI. And the key thing you got to keep in mind about this conversation when you're creating work for your portfolio, nobody cares if you did this with HDRI. They just care, does it look good? Okay. Let me kill these guys, and I'm going to kill the occlusion. And let's try to simplify our life. Let's say is our scatter map. Yeah. Okay, our albedo. Look at that. It's kind of nice. I like that. Okay. Now, we should do some translucency to help get some effect from the back, but this is all something that we can kind of deal with later. Fuzz it adds in that, but we're going to actually add fuzz directly. What we really need to do right now is we need to tone down the specularity that's happening and get this to be a little closer to flesh. So that's where it becomes really important to get this initial intensity kind of within a range of reason. And then we come in and we hit the secondary gloss, and with this we can kind of add back. You see how? There you go. So you keep this first intensity super low, because otherwise you're getting all this. Okay? And that's not what we want. We do not want that. So we're going to keep this first one really low as we possibly can. Then we're going to come into our secondary reflection. We're going to add some of that. And then we're going to come into our occlusion and add just a tiny bit of that, although the big issue, the big thing that we got to look at is our diffuse specular. This is when things really ramp up. Sorry, the cavity on your specular. Now this starts to get a beautiful kind of quality to it. Okay, let's save this. We're going to look at my final scene, and then my goal for you is you use this simple system, create your lights, create your basic material, bring your texture over, then work your magic to make this as good as you can. And then now we're going to look at the scene, and in the next couple of days we're going to go over how the camera changes things, right? And let's go back into the main camera. And if we come into the render, you can see I'm actually using some local reflections to change things. You may or may not be able to see what that does. I've actually enabled GI, right? And that is powerful. Pretty cool effects, and we haven't done those in our other scene. We're going to look at those all tomorrow. I've also doubled my resolution. I'm not using a skylight. I'm actually using lights just like I built right there in front of you. These are all lights built by scratch, so I have total control over this, and I don't have some HDRI image showing me, you know, and well, just where I'm losing control, you know. And I've got the lights positioned right where I want. Let's take a look at my skin. I've used a detail normals, which is a little different. I can look at that tomorrow with you. And there's my normal map. Let's turn our albedo off. Okay, there's a lot of extra things I've got, like fur, things of that nature that really help sell all of this deal. We've got gloss. We have a modification of the gloss. There's a couple of things that I did, and I repainted. I took the curve and I painted it. It's a little bit differently. The scatter map is a little bit different. The lips were painted to kind of remove red, We've added a translucency map, which is pretty powerful. Specular pretty much uses the same as the gloss. Okay, and you can see the intensity of this is, you know, still pretty low. 0.12. Then we've used a secondary reflection. The secondary gloss, secondary intensity, they're like 0.4. And then the cavity. And now if I turn the cavity map off, watch what happens. Because for me, so much of this magic comes in this last little bit of how this thing's a little specular, a little blown out, and then the cavity map comes in and just dials that in. You especially see it on that nose. I love it. Watch what happens up close. Big, bright, lots of speck. And then a well-positioned cavity map on that just locks that in. All right. We're going to go deeper and deeper and deeper into Marmoset and the tools that you need to start to build this. But the primary thing that you need to be thinking about, or the thing that I want you to be thinking about right now, and I'm looking here for questions. The primary thing I want you to be thinking about is just the basic skin setup. Get in there, get your subsurface scattering, and make sure your scene scale is set properly, and you've got this kind of number somewhere around 0.8, 0.4, 1 o'clock. And I'm like, I gotta get into class. And then make sure that you're going in and you're creating your specular, you're doing all these different parts. Try to keep your life simple, right? Simple as possible. And then we're gonna build, and we're gonna build on from there. All right, day 9, head over to GameArtInstitute.com. You can go over to the blog, and going to be some great stuff for you there. All right, Midgen, Glad, hey Gareth, Victor Guzman. Okay, let's take a look over at YouTube. All right. Safwan, thank you. Andrew, hey, how are you, Andrew? Nezumi, yes, no shine wet. Yes, you are right there. And yeah, the eyelashes. Absolutely. These are all the things that we need to start working on, right? Nazumi's commenting on how the eyes don't have the wetness. And I agree with him. And that's a whole stage for us. All right, guys, take care. Have an awesome day. Thank you so much for taking part in this 12 Days of Realism. I'll talk to you later.